April the 1st. Most people think of it as April Fool's Day. A day for jokes. A day for pranks. But I promise you, what is happening across Britain today is no joke. And nobody is laughing. Because today, right now, as you are watching this, thousands of businesses across the United Kingdom are waking up to the single biggest cost increase they have faced since the pandemic. Business rates are going up. The minimum wage is going up. Employer national insurance contributions are going up. Energy bills are going up. And the 40% relief that kept many hospitality businesses alive? That is gone. Abolished. Replaced with something far less generous. All of it. On the same day. I cannot tell you how angry this makes me. Because this was not an accident. This was not some unavoidable act of nature. This was a choice. The government chose to pile every single cost increase onto the same date. April the 1st, 2026. And they did it while the country is already being hammered by the worst energy shock since the invasion of Ukraine. UK Hospitality, the industry body, has warned that more than 2,000 businesses could close this year as a direct result. 2,000. That is 6 businesses shutting down every single day. Restaurants. Hotels. Pubs. The places where your community gathers, where people work, where families celebrate. Disappearing. And the people in charge? They are calling this a support package. Let me give you the numbers. Because when you see them laid out, you will understand why the industry is in a state of absolute panic. Start with business rates. The Valuation Office Agency has revalued every commercial property in England. For pubs, the average rateable value is going up by 30%. For pubs with lodging, 70%. And here is the part that makes this truly devastating. Until yesterday, hospitality businesses received a 40% discount on their business rates through the Retail, Hospitality and Leisure Relief Scheme. That discount is now gone. Finished. What replaces it is a lower multiplier that does not even come close to covering the gap. Let me give you some real examples. A small bar with a rateable value of £25,000 was paying £7,200 a year. From today, that bill is £9,550. A mid-sized restaurant or late-night venue. Their bill jumps from £17,000 to £25,800. A grassroots music venue? From £28,800 to £43,000. And a large city centre nightclub goes from £86,400 to £129,000. Let me say that again. A nightclub in a British city centre now has to find an extra £42,600 a year. Just in business rates. Before they pay a single employee. Before they turn on a single light. But it gets worse. Because business rates are not the only thing changing today. The national living wage has risen to £12.71 per hour. For 18 to 20-year-olds, it is up 8.5%. UK Hospitality estimates that wage increases alone will add £1.4 billion in costs across the hospitality sector this year. Then you add the employer national insurance increase from the budget. Then you add energy costs that have surged because of the war in Iran. Then you add food and drink inflation that is still running well above the Bank of England's target. I keep repeating these numbers because they are hard to grasp. Every single input cost, rates, wages, energy, food, insurance is going up at the same time. And revenue? Revenue is falling. Because consumers are terrified and cutting back on spending. That is not a squeeze. That is a catastrophe. I am going to say this bluntly. The government announced a 15% discount on business rates for pubs and live music venues. They called it a support package. They said it would save the average pub around £1,650 in the first year. £1,650. Do you know what that covers? That covers roughly 6 weeks of the additional wage costs alone. 6 weeks. Out of 52. That is the government's idea of support. And by the way, restaurants do not get this discount. Cafes do not get it. Hotels do not get it. Nightclubs do not get it. Only pubs and live music venues qualify. So if you run a restaurant on a British high street, you are on your own. Completely on your own. The Nighttime Industries Association put it perfectly. Their chief executive, Michael Kill, said that transitional relief softens the landing, but it does not change where we land. And where many venues will land is closure. This is what happens when a government governs by spreadsheet instead of reality. On paper, the numbers add up. Lower multiplier here, small discount there, transitional relief over there. But on the ground, in the actual kitchens and bars and hotel lobbies of this country, people are looking at their bills and wondering how they survive past the summer. Keir Starmer promised growth. Rachel Reeves promised fiscal responsibility. What they have delivered is the single biggest tax hit on British business in a generation, timed to land on the same day as a global energy crisis. They simply do not understand what they're doing. Or worse, they understand perfectly and they have decided that your local pub, your local restaurant, your local hotel is an acceptable casualty. It is not. Now let me show you where this goes. Because what starts today does not stay in the hospitality sector. It spreads. And it spreads fast. The first thing that happens is closures. UK hospitality projects 6 venues closing every day this year. 963 restaurants. 574 hotels. 540 pubs. But Michael Kill from the Nighttime Industries Association warns the real number could be higher because their projections were made before the Iran war sent energy costs through the roof. When venues close, people lose jobs. The hospitality sector has already lost between 89,000 and 100,000 jobs since the October 2024 budget. UK hospitality now warns that another 100,000 could follow. That is 200,000 jobs in total. Gone. In barely 18 months. And these are not abstract numbers. These are chefs, bartenders, cleaners, managers, receptionists. Real people in real towns who will be signing on at the job centre. When people lose jobs, they stop spending. And when they stop spending, other businesses feel it. The pub that closed? The brewery that supplied it just lost a customer. The food distributor that delivered to the restaurant? They just lost a contract. The accountant who did the books for the hotel? One less client. The domino effect is relentless. And here is where the energy crisis makes everything worse. Diesel prices at UK forecourts have surged 27% since late February. From 142 pence per litre to 181 pence. Petrol is up 14%. Every delivery, every supply run, every commute now costs more. The RAC confirmed this week that British drivers have already paid more than £500 million extra in fuel costs since the war began. £500 million. In 1 month. That money is not being spent in shops or restaurants. It is going straight into fuel tanks. And then comes the energy bill shock. Right now, household bills are protected by the price cap at £1,641. That was set before the war started. But Cornwall Insight, the leading energy forecaster, now predicts the July price cap will jump to nearly £2,000. That is an increase of up to £332 per year. British Gas itself has confirmed it expects a 9% increase in July, with more rises in October and January. So follow the chain. Business costs explode on April 1st. Venues close. Jobs disappear. Consumer spending falls. Energy bills surge in July. Consumer spending falls further. More businesses close. More jobs lost. Tax revenue drops. Government borrowing rises. And what does the government do? Borrows more. At 5% gilt yields. And remember what I told you in my last video. We are paying more in debt interest than we spend on defense. Every billion in additional borrowing makes that problem worse. This is not a cycle. This is a spiral. And today, April the 1st, is the day it begins to accelerate. I want to make this real for you, because the numbers are so large they can feel abstract. So let me bring it down to your street, your town, your life. If you live in a town with a high street, look at it. Count the empty shops. Now imagine 3 or 4 more of them going dark this year. The Italian restaurant that has been there for 15 years. The pub where you watch the football. The boutique hotel that hosts weddings. Gone. Britain has already lost 15,800 pubs since the year 2000. From 60,800 down to roughly 45,000. That is more than a quarter of all pubs in the country, wiped out in 25 years. And the rate of closure is about to accelerate. If you work in hospitality, this is your livelihood. 1 in 5 businesses in the sector says it could fail within the next 12 months. 17% are already operating at a loss. 2% say they are already unviable. Those are not my numbers. Those come from a survey by CGA, commissioned by UK Hospitality, covering more than 20,000 venues. If you are a homeowner, this affects your property value. High streets with empty units drag down surrounding property prices. Nobody wants to live above a boarded-up shop. Nobody wants to buy a house on a dead high street. If you are retired or on a fixed income, the energy bill shock in July will hit you hardest. The price cap jumping by £300 or more is not something you can absorb by working overtime. There is no overtime. There is just your pension, and it does not stretch as far as it used to. 78% of small business owners in Britain say they are losing sleep over economic volatility. But it is not just business owners. It is their employees. It is their customers. It is the entire ecosystem of people whose lives are connected to businesses that are now fighting for survival. And the worst part? Most of them did everything right. They survived COVID. They survived the energy crisis of 2022. They rebuilt. And now the government is pulling the rug out from under them. Now, could this be fixed? In theory, yes. Let me list what would help. First, the government could restore the 40% retail, hospitality and leisure relief. It was working. It was keeping businesses open. Abolishing it and replacing it with a lower multiplier that does not compensate for the loss was a policy failure. Reversing it would immediately take pressure off tens of thousands of businesses. Second, the government could delay the business rates revaluation increases. Transitional relief exists, but it is not enough. A 1-year freeze on increases for the hardest-hit sectors, particularly hospitality, nighttime economy, and independent retail, would buy time for businesses to adjust. Third, the Bank of England could hold interest rates steady. Right now, markets expect 2 to 3 rate hikes this year. If the bank decides to absorb short-term inflation rather than raise rates into a weakening economy, that would prevent mortgage costs from spiraling further and keep some consumer spending alive. Fourth, a ceasefire in the Middle East would bring energy prices down rapidly. Oil has surged 60% since late February. Gas prices have more than doubled. If the Strait of Hormuz reopens, global energy markets would stabilize within weeks, and the July price cap increase would be far less severe. But here is the catch. And it is always the same catch. The government has shown no sign of reversing course on business rates. The Bank of England is under enormous pressure to raise rates. And the war in Iran shows no sign of ending. The UK government just signed a joint statement with France, Germany, Italy, Japan and others demanding Iran reopen the Strait of Hormuz. Iran has responded by threatening to set fire to any ship that tries to pass. So we are relying on political courage, central bank wisdom, and a diplomatic miracle. And right now, none of those things appear to be coming. So what happens next? Step by step. Let me lay it out for you as clearly as I can. Step 1. Today, April 1st. Businesses across Britain wake up to higher rates, higher wages, higher national insurance, and no more 40% relief. The cost shock is immediate. This has now happened. Step 2. Over the next 3 months, the weakest businesses go first. The ones already operating at a loss. The 17% who told CGA they are barely hanging on. Then the ones operating on razor-thin margins. The closures will not make national headlines at first. They will be local stories. A pub in Devon. A restaurant in Manchester. A hotel in Edinburgh. One by one. Step 3. In late May, Ofgem announces the July energy price cap. Cornwall Insight forecasts it could hit nearly £2,000. That is an increase of up to £332 per year for every household. The headlines will be brutal. Consumer confidence, already at a 2-year low, will drop further. Step 4. July. The energy price cap takes effect. Household budgets tighten. Discretionary spending, eating out, trips to the pub, hotel stays, entertainment falls. The hospitality businesses that survived April now face collapsing demand through the summer. Step 5. The Bank of England faces an impossible choice. Inflation is rising because of energy. The economy is weakening because of cost pressures. If they raise rates, they crush businesses and homeowners. If they hold, they risk inflation becoming entrenched. Markets currently expect rates to rise to 4.5%. Either path leads to pain. Step 6. By autumn, the insolvency numbers will tell the story. 3,353 hospitality businesses entered insolvency in 2025. By the end of 2026, that number could be significantly higher. I want you to look at that timeline. Steps 1 and 2 are happening right now. Steps 3 through 6 are coming. And nobody in government appears to have a plan to stop it. That is not fear. That is a calendar. And the dates do not lie. Here is what I want to leave you with. April the 1st is not just another day. It is the day the bill comes due for a series of political decisions that were made without understanding or without caring about their real-world impact. 2,000 businesses projected to close. 200,000 jobs at risk. Energy bills about to surge. Interest rates about to rise. And the people making these decisions will never feel the consequences. They will never lose their restaurant. They will never close their pub. They will never sit at the kitchen table wondering how to make the numbers work. But you might. Someone you know might. Someone on your street almost certainly will. So pay attention. Watch what happens on your local high street over the next 3 months. Watch the energy price cap announcement in May. Watch what the Bank of England does with interest rates. Watch the insolvency numbers. Because knowledge is your first defense. If you can see what is coming, you can prepare. And right now, preparation is the most powerful thing you have. If you found this helpful, please subscribe. Share this with someone who needs to hear it. And if you run a business that is affected by what I have talked about today, I want to hear from you in the comments. Stay awake. Stay aware. Stay vocal. I will see you next time.